In episode number 236, we cover the now announced Venom solo film and why Avatar 2 is responsible for it.
We also have some news on Harley Quinn trade paperback solicitations. There is a whole bunch of these.
We also review one of our favorite Disney movies, the remake to it, The Beauty and the Beast, at the very end of the show.
All of this and much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelly.
For those of you joining us for the very first time, welcome to the Broquette family. The way we format the show is first we cover some news, and then we usually follow up with a comic book highlight, and finally end on our weekly movie review, if there is one we saw this week. So this week we've got Beauty and the Beast at the very end, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want the review or the movie spoiled for you, we'll keep that at the end of episode number 236.
Before we jump into all of our news, though, we like to keep you guys up to date on our lives because we just feel like it.
Because we have a mic and the internet.
And you people listen. So Daniel, how was your week?
I have started my journey on Andromeda, the beginning of the loss of Daniel for Kelly.
You're gone already. This is the last time I'm going to see you. It's going to be back to in front of the TV screen, and that's it. I will tell our child tremendous stories about you.
I chose my class, which was leader. And the whole version or the whole thing, the gimmick behind it is that I can power up my shields, and then I can also siphon health from my enemies if they're nearby, which causes damage, but it also powers up my shields as well. So I've got a doubly shield powery thing going, and it's slowly killing the enemies, so that's even better because that's how I like to play anyway. So I'm slowly starting to get levels and get powers and power-ups. I created my character, which does not have as many options as you would think for a Mass Effect game. For 3, I think we got closer to, more or less what we want our character to look like. And this one, the default one, doesn't let you adjust any of the facial types or the eyes, the eye types, the mouth types. And you see a lot of those with even better mechanics in games like MLB The Show, where you can really get in and edit every single aspect of the player's face. But in my case, you've got like 9 or 10 presets that you can choose from. But then the custom one for both you and your twin are Asian characters. So mine's like a brown looking, like Hispanic Asian because you can't change the eye type. You can't change the lip shapes or the thickness, or like you can't change the thickness, but the shape is still the same. So there's a lot less customization this time around as far as your character. So I'm not 100% happy with that portion of it, but the hour or so that I'm into it, it is a lot of fun. I love the scanning mechanics. I think Mass Effect as a whole, I feel like I'm back in that universe again. Haven't gone against any friendly aliens yet, so no crew members that I've attached myself to. Some options on romances, which is always a lot of fun in the game. The gameplay, the action is awesome. I love that you can jump now, you can jet. That's an improvement over the other Mass Effect games. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. The animation is a little bit distracting, like they said in the reviews, but not enough to where I would, give the game a 6 or anything like that.
Was that a criticism on other reviewers I hear there?
Well, I saw the 3 reviews on YouTube from IGN, GameSpot, I forgot what the other one was, and all of the negatives for 2 of the 3 reviews that I watched were on the animation and the graphics. And everything else, they said the action and the gameplay is the best that it's ever been in the series. The story is not as strong as the Mass Effect games, but it's still really compelling and you want to know what's happening. Not as much conflict among the characters, but the romance options are even more tied into what you do during the missions. So if you're kind of a hothead, you'll kind of cancel yourself out to some of the crew members. Those won't be options. Whereas in the other Mass Effect games, you just had to choose to talk to them the right way every single time to every crew member, and you could just romance any of them. Whatever you did during your missions did not matter to the crew, and now they've actually changed it and made it way more organic to how you can actually romance your crew. The other review that did have more to say that was negative, they went into some of the fetch quests, which the first 2 reviewers were like, yeah, but they're optional. You don't have to do them. So I know that a lot of reviewers are knocking this game like crazy because of the animations and because it's become a meme at this point to make fun of the Mass Effect Andromeda game. And I don't know if it's to appease their fans to be like, yeah, the animation's shitty. You guys make great memes. Here's a 6 out of 10 on Mass Effect Andromeda. I don't think it deserves that. I think it's still a really solid game. And granted, I'm only an hour or two in, but I mean, this is an experience. And so far, the gameplay is solid. Number one thing I look for in any games, and I've talked about it in the past, is how does it play? Is it fun? Is it solid? Graphics always, I'll say, can go to shit. I don't care. If the worst thing about Mass Effect Andromeda are the animations and the facial movements of the characters, then great. That means I've had an awesome experience because everything else was amazing.
Well, I've also been on a journey this week. The journey of growing human life. Which makes your Mass Effect look like shit.
A little bit.
Not really. So I mean, just update, because there's nothing else going in my life right now besides waking up, I go to work, I come home, and I sleep. And then I wake up, and I go straight back to work, and I come home, and I sleep. Like, that is all my life. It is amazing that we see each other awake right now, because that does not usually happen during our week. But I have my little app, and I follow, and it tells me all my little things, and my little kumquat-sized fetus now has fully functioning organs. What is this? How does that even happen? I can't fathom that right now.
We saw its little heart when we went in for the ultrasound. Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome. Imagine the size of those little fucking organs. Like tiny little organs.
I mean, it's the size of a kumquat. It's like smaller than the palm of my hand. And it's got organs and a heartbeat. And man, life is weird.
A little bit.
It's crazy.
But it's growing so fast. And
yeah.
Humans do grow so goddamn quick. Like, it's incredible. Yeah, it's 9 months, but as you're tracking it on the app, it's today it grew a fucking liver. What?
It just, out of nowhere, it just popped up. Didn't go quite like that, but yes, it is very amazing for me to see and experience firsthand, because it's not just like my baby's changing every day, but like I'm changing every day too. So some food sounds really delicious today, and tomorrow I'm going to be throwing it up. Like, that's just... And my favorite foods, I do not want them. Don't talk to me about coffee. Don't mention mushrooms. Don't mention tofu. Nope, can't do it.
Has your stomach at least settled down in which you're not throwing up as often?
Yes, it has, thankfully. But I still drive past all those neighborhoods, like the rich neighborhoods that I used to pull over and throw up in every day on the way to work. And I'm like, I barfed in your neighborhood. No, it has calmed down, but I still have to be careful, because if I eat the wrong things, then I'll feel sick.
Little by little, Kelly.
I am trying to convince Daniel to let us name our child either Bra, Trunks, or Vegeta. He's told me no so far. To
anyone not familiar, they're all DBZ characters and all related to Vegeta. So yeah. Bra and Trunks are Vegeta's kids. I'm okay with Vegeta. I'm not okay with Trunks or Bra.
Why not? Those are great names.
They're pieces of clothing. It's pieces of clothing.
Yeah, that's the point.
The Seinfeld joke of Seven, naming the kid Seven, is way better.
We're not naming our kids Seven.
It's a beautiful name.
No.
It works for both boys and girls. Mm-mm. Seven.
No.
I would rather Seven than Bra or Trunks.
No, I would rather Bra or Trunks, because then I could be like, they could go by their middle name.
Why don't we name them? I wouldn't even want a middle name. Let's not give them a middle name. How about that?
Let's give them a middle name. We could talk about this forever.
The bulk of our podcast today, Brocats, will actually be the Beauty and the Beast review. Mm-hmm. I hope you all enjoyed the new format that we debuted with last week's Kong Skull Island, and we're going to do something very similar this week. And because of that, the news has been very light, but we do still have some great things coming your way.
But to kick it off, we have our hashtag games for the week. First one we have up is hashtag films for robots.
My entry to this one was The Ping and I.
That's pretty good. Have you ever actually seen that movie?
The King and I? No, yeah. I have not.
Oh, then why? Okay.
All I know is the line of, etc., etc., etc.
It was a sweet movie. They fall in love, I think. And then they get married, I think.
I'll take your word for it.
I don't remember. Mine keeps with the theme of this week, and I said Beauty and the Beep.
There you go. We also had two responses this week. First one from @SupersideUp on Twitter from the Superside Up podcast, who said Jurassic Parts, The Dark Bite, and I, Human. I think I like The Dark Bite the best. I mean, obviously it's a comic book movie. Imagine that. Jurassic Parts is pretty good, though.
Mm-hmm. I human, I think it would just say I robot, but that's just me.
Well, no, it's a story about the world of robots and their first human going rogue.
Their first human going rogue.
And he could also say the same thing.
Could we think of one like Planet of the Apes, and then like it's just a robot world, and then something else has to take over?
Yeah, if you can come up with one.
No, that's too much work.
The other response was from @SwordfishShow, also on Twitter. Make sure to check out his Let's Plays on YouTube. Follow him @SwordfishShow. And he said, "We were sodders." And of course, that's a play on the spelling, which is SOLDERS.
Mm-hmm. So thank you guys so much for your contributions. If anybody else says, hey, I want to get on top of those hashtag games also, you can follow us on Twitter @ReasonsImBroke. Daniel's posting them all the time and not telling me about it so that I have to think of things last minute.
You got one this time.
I did, but that was easy.
I also asked Brokeheads out there, what's your comic book reading ritual? I was very curious, and we did get a response from @UberNerd527 on Twitter from the Arcade Archives Network.
Who says, quote, I need to keep the entire house quiet or go in my room and shut the door to focus on the story, end quote.
I can be the same way when it comes to comics, because if we go to a very noisy, like, coffee shop or something, it can be a little bit distracting, but I think we've sort of gotten used to the ambient noise around us. We go to the coffee shop all the time and read there, or we do read at home, and I think both are fine. I don't get distracted as much as like I used to, say, 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I used to get distracted a whole lot too. I will still get distracted if there's music on in the background. I've never been one of those people that could listen to music and focus on something else at the same time. Or I can't have the TV on in the background and focus on something else. I'm really weird. I don't know. But yeah, you know, our main ritual that we try to keep every single week is, like you said, we go to the coffee shop. So we get ourselves a big cup of coffee. We sit there, we go through all our comic books, you know, and just enjoy that way. But when we're reading at home, I need my silence. My dog's usually in my lap.
I get the most distracted by my phone going off. Like, it'll vibrate, and I'm like, oh, someone on Twitter, what do they say? You know, I immediately, once I jump into that, then I start checking, okay, what happened on Instagram? What happened on Tumblr? What happened on Pinterest? What happened on Facebook? And I have to do my rounds and check all of them. And that's another thing that's a weird thing for me, is I can't let the notifications get too built up, because, I don't know, I feel like I'd accidentally scroll past someone's comment or something and completely miss out. So I'm constantly trying to clear those out just so that, again, I don't know, it's a weird obsessive compulsive thing. But yeah, if my phone is going off when I'm reading a comic, I'll typically like ignore the 2 or 3 rumbles, and then by then I'm like, okay, so what's happening? And then I'm lost for a good 5 or 10 minutes, go back to the comic, like, okay, where was I? And I usually have to reread from the start of that page, just because I'm like, I need to have the whole thing, you know, the whole experience. I
do have another weird ritual. I always put them in order of what I want to read from least to most. So like Saga always goes on the bottom of my pile because I want to read it the most. And I feel like that motivates me to read through them, like, in one sitting, because I'm like, oh, man, I got to read my Saga. I got it, because some weeks we get so many comic books, and I'll be like, I am late tired. And then I'll stop halfway through and then forget about it. I'm not coming back to them.
Did you finish them all this week?
I did.
Yeah, that's what I told one of our subscribers, too, and he's like, yeah, the thing is, like, every time my comics are building up, because I get my books, and then I'm like, oh, there was a Walking Dead this week, or there was a Saga, and I read those first, and then I put them away, and then I forget about the other comics. And I told him, do what my wife does. Put those at the very bottom, get through the other books that you're buying, that you're obviously liking, but just not as excited to read as the other ones, and that way the final ones are like your treat, sort of, for getting past them. I don't want to say a treat, because then it sounds like you're getting through chores, but it's like your end game, or that's a way to ensure that you're going to get through your reading pile.
Yeah, that's what I do, and it's kind of the same, you know, it's not that I dislike these comic books, but I'm not as excited or I'm not as invested in the story, and if I don't read them right now, they're just going to sit on the shelf. So, yeah, there you go. Fun facts.
And let's not end it on that response. Let's go ahead and, if you want to send us in your comic book reading schedule or your ritual, go ahead and send it over to us on Facebook, facebook.com/TheReasonsImBroke, or Twitter @ReasonsImBroke.
And with that, guys, we can move into our news for the week. We're going to start off with something that we touched on a while ago.
Yeah, I want to say about 3 months ago.
It was a concept that we've heard about, and now we're seeing it kind of being fleshed out.
So Warner Brothers and 20th Century Fox are among the first group of studios working on deals to make digital movie rentals available at home as early as 30 days after the movie premieres in theaters, according to Variety.
So like we said, we talked about this a few months ago, and the price for this was astronomical.
Yes.
When they first came out with this. We said the only way it would really be worth it is to get a bunch of your friends together and watch it at home. But in this new report, it will be a $30 pre-rental price point designed to compensate for lost revenue from theater goers.
So negotiations have gone on between distributors, theaters, and studios for about a year now. So for anyone worried that, hey, what if this puts theaters out of commission? Will there no longer be theaters? Is this going to be a big hit for them? And they're concerned, obviously, because they're the ones distributing these movies, and they're going, hold on, you're going to let people stay at home and watch these as opposed to coming to our theater and paying for the ticket, buying the concessions? Well, what they're doing is they're splitting some of the profits from these rentals according to region. So if you have a local theater here, you get that region of these rentals, which I don't think have a name yet, but the theaters get a portion of that. And I'm sure there's going to be some programs too, like, hey, watch 3 movies here at our theater and get 1 free rental, or get a free rental for the movie that you watched in the theaters 30 days from now. There's going to be promotions. There's going to be cross profits for everyone involved. So it's not going to be as big of a deal as people might think. But there's one studio who is not quite on board with this.
Surprise, surprise, it's Disney. So Disney has reportedly balked at the idea of shortening the theatrical release windows for their film, and thus has not joined in.
Granted, Disney is the one of those studios that can just be like, fuck off. We're not going to put up our fucking Disney rentals 30 days after. We will make people go to theaters and they will happily pay $12 a ticket. Families will happily pay $50-something per family and just tickets to go see our fabulous Disney movies. So they can fucking get away with this, especially since this is not really a proven model yet.
I think that this model will work.
I agree.
For
Absolutely.
sure. You know, you have families, like you're mentioning, $12 a ticket. You got a family of 6. That's a lot of money just to go to the theater, and then everybody's going to want popcorn and everybody's going to want candy, and that's a lot of money. And we are slowly learning that middle-class families do not have all that extra money, for the most part, to spend on things like movies. At the same time, I don't see theaters going out of commission. For me, one of my favorite parts of going to see a movie is going to the theater. Right. It's the experience of getting my popcorn and sitting in those nice recliners at that theater that we found and seeing it on the big screen and getting to experience it for the first time there. I like seeing it at home also, but as we were talking about with comics, there's so many distractions at home. You got your phone going off. You got the dog outside barking at 3 a.m.
Or a crying baby. I mean, yeah, you can get a babysitter for when you rent this movie, but it's not quite the same as going out on a date with your wife or your girlfriend or just going out with friends. And one comment I read was, "You're a fool if you pay $30 for a rental." And immediately someone said, why? Get 2 other friends, each of you throw in $10 and have a bunch of beers at home and watch these things. Yeah. I mean, it's really it. And we said that with the $120 rentals too. It's like, okay, make it a house party.
Yeah, you know? Get 12 of your friends and there you go.
And they said even then, like, you get your 2 friends and then you don't have to deal with, you know, people, the crying baby or people talking during the movie, which does happen. So there's benefits to this, absolutely. And $30 really is not that bad.
No, the one thing that I see that maybe they won't make as much money is it's 30 days after it releases in theaters, which I understand you're trying to appeal to the theaters also, saying, look, we're not pulling all of your business. For me, having friends over to see something at that, it would either have to be a movie that I'm not really interested in or a movie that I saw once and I said, hey, this is really good. Oh, you guys haven't seen it yet? Come over, chip in $10. We'll pop some popcorn and have some beers.
The other thing there's 2 things. One is, well, it won't stop a majority of it at all, and it won't really make a huge impact. There's still some money to be made from people that are like, you know, I did like that movie, and we're still months away from the Blu-ray release, and instead they'll go ahead and pirate it or go through one of the apps that already have the movies on there. But instead, if they can do the $30 rental with a bunch of friends and say, you know, I'm not willing to wait, but I don't want to pirate it either, they can get it as a rental and, again, have a nice get-together with everyone as you stream the movie that's still in theaters. The other thing, too, was Potential businesses, especially small ones that want to make like an event out of these, kind of like you see with the UFC pay-per-views. I don't know what the legality is behind it, but something that's like really small, like a mom and pop shop, like a video game shop or a coffee shop, they can have a night of, yes, tonight we're going to watch the Justice League film 30 days after release, but not out on home video. And that'll attract a lot of people too. And you're paying as a business $30 for people to come out to your shop and watch it.
Especially if, like you were saying, a coffee shop. Then you have specialty items for that particular movie. Like get your Batman black coffee or, you know, whatever. People will go out for that also. But I'm sure there's legalities.
Maybe. You have to be really small and just a small town where some asshole won't tell on you.
Just invite your friends.
Do you think Disney will eventually jump on, or are they going to wait and see what kind of business this drives?
I think they're going to wait and see what kind of business it drives. I think we've seen with Disney movies, though, they don't... Yes, there's that drop after the movie comes out where not as many people are seeing them, but Moana's still huge. People are still seeing Moana, and that came out forever. How long did people go see Let It Go, fucking Frozen? Like, people saw that movie forever. And so, with a lot of these Disney movies, they don't have that where they're losing that much momentum, where this would be a better option. But, you know, if it's making money too, because you have the families that are going to see it at home for $30. But then you also still have, like, we can go to the movies for $11. So I'm not really going to rent it at home. It's cheaper for me to go to the theater. So then you still have those Disney nuts that are still going to the theater because it's cheaper for them to go by themselves to see it. So we'll see. Right now, they don't have to worry about that.
So what the hell was I talking about earlier with Avatar 2 being responsible for a Venom film? This isn't James Cameron's Venom, like a title that just happens to share the name of a Marvel character. No, this is Spider-Man Venom. And there's a correlation here, and I'm going to tie it together in just a second.
Can it be like Venom on the Titanic?
I would absolutely watch that. So Sony has taken October 5th, 2018 for its Venom solo film, according to The Hollywood Reporter.
So this is where it all ties in. The date was previously held by Aquaman, which moved to December 21st, which was previously held by Avatar 2. So it's not Aquaman's fault, it's Avatar's fault.
Yeah, and one of the things, Aquaman got pushed back to December, and a bunch of, news stories ran with it, like, oh, they got delayed, DC doesn't have their ducks in a row. It's like, yeah, well, that's because Avatar moved their shit. And they gave up that date of December 21st, which is huge money, more than Aquaman's October release. So instead, they said, okay, that's ours now. We got December 21st.
Oh, sorry.
Avatar's gone? Yep, we're in.
Did they, pee on it like dogs do? Like, this is my lamppost.
This is ours. No, Ocean Master came on it.
Oh, okay.
He came on that date, and they're like, oh, all right.
They're like, don't want to touch that now. Okay.
So now Aquaman has the December money, the holiday money, the post-New Year's money. They are solid. And now that they gave up their date of October, then Sony went, oh, that's ours, and Venom film, right there. Which they were obviously working on already, and once they saw that the date freed up and Aquaman gave up that date, they're like, next best thing, boom, got it. So this is all because of Avatar 2, which got delayed into, I don't know, I'm not really following it, but sometime 2019, I'm guessing.
Listen, I don't understand that movie. I guess it's going to make money.
Disney's releasing it, but they also released the BFG.
But, I mean, they just built Avatar Land, so there's got to be money in it somewhere.
Something they're seeing that we're not.
I guess. All I saw was Pocahontas with fancy graphics.
So there's no word yet on if or how this will tie into Spider-Man Homecoming or the rest of the MCU.
Do you feel like Venom can really hold his own movie, though? That's the question on my mind, most of all.
I don't. I really don't, but you know what? It's not a movie for me. This is going to be a movie for the Venom fans that do want to see Venom, beating up bad guys, and if they go for the brain-eating thing from the classic Venom run, cool. And stopping villains, I guess. I mean, that's what they want to see. They want to see like an action film with Venom. And, whereas, we're looking for the story and we're looking for the symbolism, it's not going to be there. And that's not the kind of movie that this is supposed to be. So if you're asking me if it can hold its own movie, I'm saying no, as in it can't hold a good movie. Like this is not going to be a good film, but it's going to be, flashy and and it's going to have tons of special effects. And I think the Venom fans will be happy as long as it is Eddie Brock and it looks more like the comic book villain, although I still think Spider-Man 3 did an okay job. Just everyone said the same thing, like there wasn't enough of him, and I'm like, well, what else would you do with him? Like, you know? So I think if they went for like the Agent Venom, then
Secret Agent Venom,
then we'd get a really solid movie. But if they're going with Eddie Brock, it's going to be, they're going to have to make some changes if they want to impress, you know, people with their story, which again, they shouldn't be aiming for. Now, the question is, are we going to see Carnage? I'm calling it right now. Yes, Carnage is going to be in the solo Venom film.
I don't know who that is.
Carnage is the red Venom.
Oh, the red Venom. The red Venom. Okay. Yeah, probably. They'll probably fight each other. Like, Venom will start out bad, but then he'll turn good, but then red Venom shows up, and then he has to fight his other self.
Writing this as okay, this is what I would do, all right? If you're going to tie this into the Disney universe, Spidey has to make a cameo in here. And yes, they have to have Carnage in, and I do think he's going to be in it. And like in the comics, they're going to team up to stop Carnage. And it'll be a Spider-Man and Venom teaming up against Carnage, maybe even more symbiotes than that. But, you know, keep it simple. Just keep it at Carnage.
Be like a pink Venom and like a blue Venom.
Well, they can do like the separation anxiety thing or maximum Carnage. Yeah, those do exist, actually, but I don't know if they'd go that route. But have Spidey in here, put him in a little cameo. That'll make all the tie-in people happy because it ties into the movies. And then you have Carnage there, who there is a fan base for. And Carnage definitely cannot hold his own movie. So if you're going to put him anywhere, you put him in the fucking Venom film. So that's where you throw him in. And the Venoms, actually, I just saw... It's a little unrelated, but I hope they write them like they did in the older comics, just so I can see audience reaction to what? And I can be like, no, this is Venom. That is what he talks like. I was just watching the death battle this morning between Bane and Venom. And throughout it, Venom is laughing maniacally and you're saying, "Pop goes the weasel," after I'm not going to spoil the ending to it, but when we all know fucking Venom wins anyway. So he pops Bane's head and it comes off and he says that line. And one of the comments reads, why'd they write him to sound like Carnage? And I'm like, no, pick up one of those old Venom comics. And I always do every time we go through a collection and there's Venom issues, I find all the silly lines. That's how he talks. He says weird, stupid shit like that. Old Venom does that. He calls Spider-Man baby and says, "I'm back," like in long A.
Is he Jim Carrey?
He's the Mask. He is literally the Mask, pretty much. Like, it is basically the Mask. And now they write him a little bit differently, where he's a little bit edgier and not really as jokey. But that was Venom, though. That is the origin, and that's how he was for many years. That's what I want to see on the big screen. Like, just
why is
one-liners.
He a popular character?
Again, he looks cool. That is it. He looks cool.
All right.
And that's what I'm saying. This movie needs to be a bunch of cool-looking scenes, and everyone that went to see this movie for Venom will be happy.
All right.
So the last bit of news here, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Harley Quinn, DC Comics will be releasing compilation trades and hardcovers throughout the year of her most memorable comic book stories.
Can you believe 25 years already?
I can't believe that shit. Yeah,
that's
25
amazing.
years. I mean, we knew Batman the Animated Series had turned 20 several years back, but holy shit, man. When you actually look at it and someone points out 25 years of Harley Quinn, you think, yeah, I guess it has been that long.
Wow.
Good for fucking Paul Dini. He's forever going to make that Harley money.
So the first trade paperback we have is Harley Quinn, A Celebration of 25 Years. This will release the 19th of September. It will be $39.99 and have 300 pages.
This, to me, is the least valuable of this line of trade paperbacks because this is just an amalgam of different comics, different stories from different eras. So it's not going to be anything complete or a run. Now, to anyone that is a more casual reader, or if you want to buy this for like your Harley Quinn fan who's just getting into comics, this is the perfect entry-level comic. So I know why it's there and why they're putting it out. But as us, we're Harley Quinn fans, we have to judge it like assholes. We're like, no, not that book.
I am actually in my Harley Quinn onesie right now.
It's true.
So if there were any doubts that we were Harley fans.
The other trade is Harley Quinn by Terry Dodson and Carl Kessel, Volume 1. Love Terry Dodson. I always try to pick up a shit ton of his variants when they release. He's still working along with Rachel Dodson. They are an awesome team, awesome couple. This book releases the 12th of September for $29.99, and it has 248 pages.
This collects Harley Quinn number 1 through 9 from her run in the early 2000s.
We've talked about that run in the past. It's not the best.
No, it was okay, but it was great to see Harley have something of her own back then, because she was just always seen with the Joker.
Yeah, I will say the art was the best part of it, and again, Terry Dodson, but it'll sell, and it's more complete than anything else.
Next up, we have Harley Quinn's Cover Gallery Deluxe Edition. This releases on the 24th of October. It's a hardcover for $24.99. The solicitation reads, all of the greatest cover art for one of DC's most popular villains is finally gathered into one incredible hardcover collection. Another
pass for me, I think. It's more like an art book. You can probably throw it up in the art book section somewhere. I don't know. I think the Harley Quinn Terry Dodson is going to sell the best. Although here's another one that's going to do extremely well. So we've got Harley Quinn by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner, Omnibus Volume 1. This will be releasing on the 12th of September for $100, and it contains 752 pages.
Ooh, that's a lot of pages. So this volume features Harley Quinn number 0 through 16, Director's Cut number 0, Futures End number 1, Harley Quinn Invades San Diego Comic-Con number 1, Annual number 1, Secret Origins number 4, the Valentine's Day and Holiday Specials, and Harley Quinn and Power Girl numbers 1 through 6.
If you want to get current on Harley Quinn on the current run by Jimmy and Amanda, which is overall better than the Terry Dodson run, yes, this is the one you want to get in with. And this is probably the one that will give you the best value at the end of the day. Even if you're trying to track down the older Harley Quinn issues, some of those have already risen in price. So if you don't want to overpay for those issues, the omnibus is all value. If you want to get the individual trade paperbacks, that's fine too. But again, you're going to end up paying more than if you pick up the omnibus.
Right.
Are there any from this list that you think we'd possibly jump in on?
Not at this time, no. We were very fortunate. I've been a Harley nut for a long time, so we did pick up a lot of the early 2000s issues. Had we not, I would probably want to pick up that one just so that I could see that story as well. But I feel like we have a pretty good handle on our Harley collection.
Yeah.
This is really for all the newer fans or the people who don't necessarily have the time or the resources to track down all those older issues. Or, maybe you have those issues and you love them so much and you want to read them again without pulling them each individually out of the bag. Then yes, this is great for that audience. I will save my money for more frivolous things like diapers at this point.
But not everyone can be happy about Harley Quinn.
No.
And because of that, we have this week's Nerd Rage Reaction!
Thank you for humoring me and still letting me do my Super Saiyan noises.
Of course.
Oh, wait, I forgot lightning. Well, that was thunder, whatever.
So is anyone confused? A Nerd Rage Reaction is a comment on the internet that we found to be funny, that we want to point out. We won't give you the person's name. You're more than welcome to try to find the comment. But here is this week's Nerd Rage Reaction to the Harley Quinn trades and hardcover story.
How does this series get an omnibus ahead of a much better stories? Because
Ka-ching!
It sells?
Ka-ching! Ka-ching! Money, 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 money talks. Good stories do not translate into great sales. Doesn't happen all the time, sorry. Great stories will hold a readership, but your favorite comic book story of whatever is not going to sell as much or on the level that Harley Quinn is if it already doesn't have an omnibus. So that's why this is getting an omnibus ahead of other better stories. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't speak to the sales, and that's what people don't understand. It's not quality. They don't go, what is the best written? Because in that case, we would get the fucking Scott Snyder Capullo omnibus, and that hasn't appeared, Or
the Saga omnibus? There's not enough issues of Saga.
Well, they're milking that shit first because they're doing the big hardcovers and then they're doing the little trades. And rightfully so. Fuck yeah, you're on top. Might as well. So no, that's not, you're not going to get your omnibus for whatever the fuck. It's all about cash. That's why they do these.
And she's going to make him the money. So yeah, go ahead, DC. Whatever.
And that does wrap it up for our news stories for the week. As we mentioned earlier, it was a lighter week for the podcast, but we do have our Patreon shout-outs this week, followed by the Beauty and the Beast full spoiler review.
This week, our Patreon shout-out goes to Brian, whose Twitter handle is @BrianShelp1.
Who's been very excited about Exo Man-O-War from Valiant. Make sure to follow him once again @BrianShelp1.
Thank you so much for your contributions. If you guys are not yet Patreon supporters and you would like to be, you can head over to patreon.com/TheReasonsImBroke for as little as $1 a month. That's 25 cents an episode. You too can have your Patreon shout out.
We also want to thank DecalAvenue.com for providing us the decals at the $5 reward tier. Don't forget to also check out our merchandise shop at TheReasonsImBroke.com and flip through the t-shirt, see if there's anything you would like. All of it supports us. All of it goes towards the server costs for the podcast, for the website, and for the programs that we use to make the podcast sound better and the Let's Plays look and sound better as well.
But of course, the best thing you can do for us is leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast and let your friends know about us, bring on more listeners, and reaching out to us on Twitter as well.
No comic book highlight this week since everything was sort of mid-story. Nothing that we can recommend that would be a great jumping on point for readers. And no terrible stories that we can say, yeah, avoid this series. So we may have one next week, but this week, no comic book highlight. Instead, as we mentioned, the bulk of the show will be the Beauty and the Beast review. If you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled for yourself, thank you so much for tuning in to the episode and to the podcast each week. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, here we have some facts and the full review to Beauty and the Beast.
I've come for my father.
He's a thief.
Come into the light. I will escape, I promise.
So the director of the film was Bill Condon, who's done Dreamgirls and Chicago.
Definitely shows in the film, and we'll definitely talk about that. It stars Emma Watson from the Harry Potter films, Dan Stevens from the TV show Legion, and Luke Evans from the movie Dracula Untold.
As of March 22nd, the film has earned $357 million in its 4-day opening weekend.
That fucking Disney money. They said, fuck your 30-day rental shit again. 357 goddamn million. This makes it the second largest March global opening behind Batman v Superman.
It tried. You tried, Beauty and the Beast. You tried.
One of the things that you had mentioned, I guess you saw an article or a clickbait thing. Maybe it was in North America where they broke the record, but that supposedly somewhere Beauty and the Beast had broken BVS's March record. And maybe it was the opening. No, I guess it wasn't opening weekend. We were just talking about that, but globally it did not break BVS's record. But even then, I'm like, so anyone that's happy about it, it's not like the money from BVS goes away. Like, they broke your record, BVS. Give us all that money you earned. Oh, shucks. Like, it's no, everyone still got a shit ton of money.
Yeah. Shit ton of our money.
Absolutely. So much goddamn money. And we were so excited going into Beauty and the Beast.
It's one of our favorite films. It's probably my second favorite animated Disney film.
What's your first, just out of curiosity?
Probably Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, the Many Adventures?
The Many
or is
Adventures.
It just called?
No,
Okay.
The Many Adventures. It's the one from, I believe it was from the 60s or something. It was from a long time ago where you can still see the sketch lines. And that's my favorite because it's something that I grew up with. When I watch it, it's so nostalgic for me. And I think I didn't really get into Beauty and the Beast probably until we started dating is when I really found a new love for that movie.
And Beauty and the Beast was, I believe, the very first animated feature to get nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
It lost to Silence of the Lambs.
Tough year. It's
But that's always a great argument because people say all the time, oh yeah, this movie's nominated for Best Animated Feature. I'm like, but Beauty and the Beast did it before that was a category.
And before there were 10 nominations or whatever the fuck for Best Picture. Like, there were only, 4 or 5 back then? And to
5, I
throw
think.
Beauty and the Beast in there absolutely is a huge accomplishment.
Oh, for sure.
That I don't think any of today's animated features that have been nominated for Best Picture would have made if it were still down to the 5 nominations. And that's not a knock to animated films in any way, because you can get there, like we said with Beauty and the Beast. But now we have the remake, the live action remake, to what is essentially a perfect film of the 90s. So to anyone unfamiliar with how we rate the movies, we go through 3 categories. We've got story, acting/directing, and special effects. And then at the end, we're going to give it a rating out of 5. So in this case, we'll rate it out of 5 enchanted roses.
Ooh, romantic.
So let's talk about the story first and how it was. I mean, it's inevitable. We have to compare it in some way to it. I'm going to try not to, because it's got to be its own thing. But
I know.
But to anyone not familiar with the Beauty and the Beast story, yeah, it is the story of love without appearance. Getting past someone's appearance and falling in love with them. In this case, it's also sort of a story about change and how you can bring out the good in people that have been, I guess, jaded, or in this case, cursed or trapped in this body. Brings up that controversial thing of like, yeah, just stick around until you make them into better people. But, that's a whole different thing.
It's also overcoming, maybe, I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it, overcoming almost the box that your parents have put you in, or overcoming the life that your parents have wanted you to lead, and becoming your own person through that.
In spite of what your parents made for you, or what the rest of the village thinks. So, of course, the story, should we run through it really quickly?
Sure.
It's Belle giving the audience the boring life that she lives through day to day. Eventually, her dad goes off. In this version, it's not to a fair, right? It was to get some materials, from what I caught.
It's so he's not an inventor per se. He makes music boxes.
Yeah.
Very elaborate music boxes with gears, and they're very beautiful. And he's going to market to another town to sell this music box to earn more money. I guess that's his source of income, as he makes these, he sells them, he comes back. So that's where he's going. And then, of course, fate happens and he ends up at the Beast Castle.
Yeah, and in that one he takes shelter, and the objects, I guess, are happy to be serving him, or did he eat the master's dinner? I was a little confused with that, but otherwise he says, fuck this place, it's kind of crazy. And as he leaves, he says, oh wait, Belle told me to get one of these roses and bring them back to her. So he finds like a garden, there's roses, picks one, and that's when the Beast finds him, calls him a thief, and throws him as a prisoner into the castle. That's when Philippe says, fuck you, man, I'm out of here. Like, I was with you with the wolves, and I risked my life then, but not against that
this
fucking
beast?
big-ass,
No way.
ugly-ass thing. And runs into town and says, Belle, your dumbass dad wanted to take that fucking path that just, I guess, another path opened, so we'll go down there. And, he's dead now. And she...
If Philippe could talk.
Oh my God, I love Philippe. And Belle goes with Philippe, and they end up finding the evidence of the music box and the rest of his belongings. They continue down the path, and they find Beast's castle, which it was an interesting change. And when she finds her dad, the Beast says, you're going to take his place instead. And he says, no, you're not. And he's like, okay, I just want to say bye to him. And she throws him out of the cage and traps herself in the prison, which was an interesting change because it gave more power to Belle as a character, which you didn't get like this in the animated.
And of course, the story continues on where she and the Beast grow to be friends and then grow to fall in love with each other. You still have the conflict between Belle's dad and Gaston, where they just all think he's crazy and they won't go to save Belle. But an interesting twist, Gaston's a murderer in this movie.
And initially, I guess he half believes him because he's willing to go and find the castle with Maurice. And that's when instead he says, no, we're just gonna tie you to this. We knocked him out after he says, you're never gonna marry Belle and I'll never give you her hand. And I guess that frustrated him to the point of, let him get eaten by the wolves here. Let him die in the cold. And then we'll just go back to the village.
And then just take Belle when she realizes her dad's dead.
I guess so. I don't know. It was a little weird. I don't know. But instead, Belle makes it back after the Beast releases her and sees that Maurice was going to be thrown into the asylum. And this is after what later turns out to be the Enchantress releases him from the tree. And he goes back to town to convince everyone, but they're still idiots and they listen to Gaston. Belle makes it back.
Except that one guy in the crowd.
The book guy?
No, was it the book guy?
Well,
no, he worked at the tavern. The one black guy in the town.
No, that was the book guy.
Oh, is he the book
Yeah.
guy? Where he's like, you're out your mind.
And, well, there was one tavern guy who was like, did you really try to kill him, Gaston? Why would you? It was more like a disappointed parent, like,
Yeah.
Gaston, come on.
Killing people again.
And so Belle makes it back. They all go to the castle. They
Kill
wreck
the beast.
upon the beast, yes.
They kill the beast.
Gaston kills the beast. He falls to his death, and eventually she says, I love you, and all the objects come back to life, and the spell is broken just like the regular movie.
Yes.
The changes.
There were
The
several
additions.
changes, yes.
There's a backstory to Belle's mom that I don't know about you, but I felt was not necessary because it wasn't necessary in the original film either. I didn't feel like anyone, at least I didn't wonder, why is she only with Maurice? What happened to her mom? Because we're just given the information or assume that she's gone. She's
gone.
nowhere to be found.
Correct.
Maurice is raising Belle. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know the whys. But this film tried to give us the why.
And that's one thing I will say for this film is that it didn't just recreate what we already had. It tried to fill
Correct.
in the holes, and we'll talk about that coming up. And I have heard people ask what happened to Belle's mom. They ask that about a lot of Disney movies because all the moms are always missing. Jasmine's mom is gone. Cinderella's mom. Snow White ain't got nobody. Oh no, it was her mom. Anyway, and they did that. So the story is she caught the plague. So Maurice pieced out with little baby Belle and moved very far away from everything in order to keep her safe. And that was what Belle was trying to overcome, was her father always trying to keep her safe, always keeping her inside in this small, adventureless world where nothing would happen to her. And I think that's why they gave that background. I will say the part that disappointed me most about that was the way they got to that with another random enchanted book that took you anywhere you wanted to go.
Right.
I
yeah.
felt, I get it, you're trying to make a touching moment between Belle and the Beast where the Beast then understands Belle and her father more. But I didn't feel that it was necessary.
I agree. Like, that could have been cut. The other addition, too, was the beginning with the curse, because you kind of think, like, Jesus, the Enchantress is kind of an asshole. Like, she curses everyone. And later on, you learn that from Mrs. Potts, who says, we were cursed as well because we did nothing to stop the Beast from turning into this twisted individual, this twisted prince that he ended up becoming. So that's why we're punished. And I thought that was an awesome, like, okay, this makes sense too, because they feel just as guilty about being here, and it's not just the Beast's fault.
We do get a background story to him and his family as well.
Right.
Because we see that great painting with the slash marks through it, and the marks are just through himself and his father and not his mom. And you find out his mother passed away too. I'm going to assume the plague also or something. His mom wasn't around. And because his dad was an arrogant ass, he's like, all right, kid, you're going to be an arrogant ass too. And again, leading back into the you don't have to be what your parents make you, which the Beast, of course, learns and overcomes. So really, that lady should have cursed his dad, but his dad was probably dead from the plague too.
That backstory for the Beast with his parents, cut or leave? Did you need it? Did you not need it?
I liked it more than Belle's backstory with her mom. So yeah, they can leave it.
The other change, too, which I thought was awesome, is that the Beast is educated, which made sense, like unlike in the animated one, where it seems like she's almost reading to the Beast a lot of these stories, or opening this world to him.
She's teaching him to read is what it almost looks like.
Exactly. And in this one, he is actually like, what's your favorite book? Romeo and Juliet? That is garbage. I mean, there's better books out there. And he says the line of, I had an expensive education. I'm not an idiot. I've read all of these except for the Greek ones. Like, he's the one like introducing these things to her, which I thought was pretty amazing, because he's not an idiot. And that's what she's looking for, too. She doesn't want a stupid man. She wants someone who's intelligent.
Well, and you see that in the beginning when she's reading the book, and Gaston's like, oh, that book. And she's like, oh, have you read it? And he's like, no. No,
that was his one chance.
But that was another part that I really enjoyed about the movie that I felt that it maybe did a little bit better than the first one, is the introduction to the library. So in the older one, of course, Belle goes to the library in the town, and I mean, it's a decent-sized library. There's still plenty of books. In this particular movie, there's 6 books on the shelf.
Yep.
There's really not a lot, and you understand that she's read them all. And it makes sense that she could have read them all, whereas in the other movies, that's a lot of books, Belle. What do you do with your time?
It also reflects on the town that they don't value these books like she does.
Right.
And that's another reason why it's such a small collection, because if maybe the town demanded more, they could get more books in there. So there's way more reflection on the town itself. And the level of ignorance that they do have, aside from just, she's weird because she reads, and Maurice is a fucking weirdo too. She's trying to teach another little girl to read, and they're like, literacy for girls? What is going on? You know, the town is definitely less progressive than Belle is, and that built upon the story of Belle, I think a little bit more also than the animated film. It took a little bit more time in the town than what we're used to. The other change that I really, really thought was incredible, and it filled in a big hole, and maybe you've got another one, but from the animated, so we've got the time problem, right? Where Chip is still a little kid. In this one, they say they don't age. As they were is how they're going to be, correct?
Right.
So if the curse is broken, they're going to come back to life in the same age that they were.
Correct.
The tragedy seems to be that I guess the other thing, the town also used to know about the castle, right? And the Enchantress made it so that they all forgot about the castle, which also answers the question of why haven't they come across it or gone into the castle? Like, yeah, they can say it's haunted or it's spooky or whatever, but if it was cursed and he really was a prince of this land, they would know, right?
They would have remembered.
They would have remembered. So,
and that's what they say in the very beginning. She made everybody forget, and she hid the castle away, like it was gone from everybody's mind.
And the curse is that the beast will remain a beast forever, and the objects, unlike the animated, slowly churn into those objects forever. They're not going to be themselves
just objects,
again. Like, that is it. And the beast can remain lonely for all time as a beast, which is the continued and forever punishment for the prince. That I thought was also an incredible change, because in the original, so I guess they're just objects forever. Like, yeah, that sucks, but they're enchanted, I guess. I don't know.
Well, there was that, and also, like you said, the time thing where they just stopped aging. And there was a line, and I was waiting for it. And I'm sure we were all waiting for this line in Be Our Guest, when Lumiere sings 10 years we've been resting. And in this one, he sings so many years we've been resting. So that just fix that gap right there, because then you think, you're like, all right, if he had till his 21st birthday, and they didn't even say till his 21st birthday, but if he had that, then he was 11 when he got cursed, so that witch is really like an asshole.
It's a little kid, lady.
Yeah, calm down, leave him alone. So yes, I did think that was a great change. It definitely filled in the plot holes that I'm sure something that we've all noticed and complained about at some point. The snowball scene was one of my favorite things, though. That was great.
She nails him with a snowball, and he does the giant snowball like in the animated, and fucking destroys her with
Hits her in the fucking head.
And he laughs about it too, doesn't he?
He does. He laughs. He thought it was great.
So yeah, the story, some changes that we really enjoyed, that we thought were great, some that could have been cut. The musical number For the Beast, I didn't enjoy. You said a lot of people did. After Belle leaves.
Yes, go ahead.
After Belle leaves, he lets her go. You're free. Go to your father. He needs you. And in the animated, he goes into that depression of, I'm not going to see her again. And
he just goes,
well, he roars, but.
No, he does. He gets real sad. Oh, that's when Gaston shows up.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to kill you, Beast. He's like,
well, and that makes more sense in the animated. But in here, he's just like, I will forever imagine you returning one day, even if you never do. And that'll be
sweet. And I know she'll never leave me.
And I don't know why he wouldn't defend himself against Gaston coming by, even if he said, Belle sent me here to kill you. I think he would have been like, whoa, hold on, where's Belle? Especially with the way he was singing about her.
Oh,
so
no,
that could have been cut too.
He was singing like that because he loved her. She was in his heart.
Sure.
So emotionally, she would never be gone. He wasn't thinking that she loved him. She was gone. But because he loved her, so in his mind, she very well could have sent Gaston. She could have hated him. He didn't know. But because if I were to leave you, if I were to die, would I ever really leave you? I'd forever be in your mind.
I suppose so, but it just doesn't give me this version didn't make me think he would not defend himself against Gaston. That's the one thing that was a little bit that I did not buy. So, and it's only because of that musical number. If they had cut that, which wasn't great, but you mentioned it was done by the same composer as the original film.
So this was composed by the same guy who did all the music from the last
Yeah,
one.
and there's some extra songs, and that's the only one that I was like, I didn't really care for that song. You know, cut that bit out too, and just seeing the weird
I thought it
CG
was
beast
sweet.
running
I
around
was
and
like,
singing.
I love you, Beast. I would never leave you. I'd say goodbye, Father.
The story overall, it's as close to an exact remake as the original. You can't really complain about them not doing it justice.
Yes.
And they added some things that improved it and some things that hindered it.
I will say something I thought was lacking was Gaston. I did not feel for him like I did in the original.
Would that be something to talk about with the acting, or is this still how he was written?
I feel like it's more of how he was written, because in the very beginning, it seems like he's really trying to get with Belle. He's like, she's beautiful, I want to be with her. And I'm like, Belle, calm down. You're not even giving him a chance. But he wasn't written as pompous and arrogant as I feel he was in the other one.
Yeah, it didn't come off quite as cartoony. I agree. I still...
They did add more to LeFou, though.
They did. They made LeFou more, I guess, human or more... Yeah, he wasn't exactly a terrible person because he was guessing, like, maybe we shouldn't leave Maurice there. Like, I feel really guilty about Maurice dying out there. So they
he wasn't
definitely
just a
fleshed him out.
lackey. He was really a person in this, yeah.
And that is one thing. Like, while Gaston was not overly exaggerated, they still made him into a fucking killer. You know, knocking out Maurice.
Let's kill the beast.
He's a worse person in this than in the animated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, for sure. You never saw him. Or he's just, like, fucking shooting Beast in the back with his weirdo gun.
Weirdo gun. Yeah, it's... I mean, all right, so let's talk about the acting.
Mm-hmm.
The voice for the Beast, fine, great. It sounded just like the animated.
Yeah.
No problems there.
When he turned around, he was still real creepy, too. After he
the
becomes
prince?
Human. Yeah.
Yes, the prince was super weird looking and creepy and ugly.
Just like we expected.
Just like in the animated.
Yes,
so we're all like, ugh, that's the prince.
But that's if I hadn't had that reaction, I would have been sad.
Exactly.
I'd be like, he's too handsome. Recast.
Like when they showed his casting, we're like, I mean, he's weird looking. Let's see how he shows up in the movie. Like,
perfect.
they don't. Yeah, and then he turns around like, hello, Belle. I'm like, oh my god, I'm still surprised by how fucking weird looking the prince is. But that's the story that's the whole point of the movie, right?
She's already in love with him, so like, fuck it.
Yeah, like it's not all about appearances, Belle. You remember, don't forget, that's Beauty and the Beast. So they nailed it perfectly. Yes, great casting. The Gaston was a great. I thought he was a great Gaston. You know, he was like the rest of the actors. He didn't sing too well, but neither did anyone else. I felt. I think Emma Watson, to me, I don't know if you felt differently, was the weakest casting from the main characters. Like, Maurice's dad was another one that I'm like, can we recast?
Dad?
I'm sorry, Maurice. Belle's dad, Maurice, could have been recast completely. I was not a fan of his performance as Belle's dad. And Emma Watson, I did not buy her as Belle either. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those, like, I don't know if she just wasn't I didn't buy her being into the role as much. I didn't see her as Belle. I didn't see her fleshing out the character as much. Sometimes they didn't give her lines when they're in the castle, so that's the writer's fault too. But while I did enjoy the things they did with her, in which she's constantly trying to escape the castle, so she's not completely helpless and crying on the bed like in the animated. I mean, she's a smart cookie. She's constantly trying to escape and constantly trying to do things. But her performance, which I don't know, I felt it shorted out on me.
I can see where you got that feeling too. I won't say I was completely dissatisfied with her performance. They did add different elements to the character of Belle, like you said, trying to escape. She actually helps in the fight with the Beast and Gaston.
Yes, that was awesome.
We get to see in the very beginning that she's actually one of the ones making these designs and helping her father create these things. You know, of course, she's very, very smart. But yes, I think the part where I liked her acting most was when she was defying the Beast and saying things like, no, you're holding me up in here, you're crazy, like, don't come in here. And the rest of the time I was like, all right, you know, I never really got the feeling that she was in love with him. Right,
maybe that's exactly what my issue with
that might be it, until the very, very end. When,
I don't know, even then I'm like, okay.
But in the end she just said it. Like, I never would have guessed. I'm like, all right, they're friends now. But yes, I never got the feeling that she was in love with him.
Even during the big dance sequence between Belle and the Beast, and I don't know, she just wasn't. I mean, I know it's hard to act against something that's not there. It's a CGI thing, but I guess I didn't buy it either. That was probably the weakest part of it, and I feel like they really could have cast a much stronger Belle. And It's fine. It's
Well,
oh well.
part of that too, and I notice it a lot with bigger named actors like that too, is you always think about the other things that they've done. When I see Hermione, or when I see Emma Watson, I always kind of think of Hermione, and I know that she's done other things and that she has great talent, but that's what you associate her with. So that's part of my problem.
Did you not like Maurice either?
No, not really.
Okay,
He wasn't
so
like,
it's not just me.
He wasn't loony enough.
What was the one line that I was like, okay, no, this is enough. It was in the bar scene, and when he was defying Gaston and talking about no, you tried to kill me, LeFou, like that whole exchange there. I was like, this is not good. This is not good. Maybe needs an extra half second cut there. They lingered on him too much. I don't know, but that's where I was not at all feeling Maurice or Belle. Everything else, yeah, it was fine as far as the acting, the directing. It didn't blow me away. Like I know, and one of those things is most of it is a green screen, right? And that's one of the issues that we have with technology now is it now the DP or the director's fault if the shot doesn't look as nice because they're relying on, well, let's hope they put something cool in the background or they move the background enough to where it keeps up with the CGI. And it didn't blow me away. There was nothing quite as, and it should have been. I mean, this is a fantasy story. It did not feel fantastic. It did not feel like it was magic, the way the camera was moving, and we did not get it out of this. Instead, it was focusing on the CGI and the actors, sort of like a still shot here, and then it could have done way more. The animated movie.
Little things hanging from the ceiling.
The animated movie did some crazy shit for an animated film of its time, and even if they emulated a bunch of those, you would have done a better job than what happened here. But it just ended up being very standard for a movie from Disney that is remaking one of the greatest animated films out there.
As far as the acting from the objects, so you had Luminaire, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts. How did you think all of that was?
I think the voice acting was fine. I think Ewan McGregor slipped a number of times as Lumiere. He didn't have that consistency in his accent. But, I mean, everyone else was spot on, I felt. Chip, you're never going to find a kid like the original Chip.
No, he was
so
great.
he was lacking too, of course. But Mrs. Pot was awesome. The Beast's voice was incredible, almost exactly like the animated.
He had weird lips, though. That distracted me.
Well, we're going to talk about special effects. Cogsworth, I loved Cogsworth's deeper voice. It was like this old general thing. I don't know.
I don't know if it was the writing or if it was the acting, but I didn't feel like Lumiere and Cogsworth were as close as they were in the original.
Yeah, and that kind of didn't pay off either at the end when they're saying their goodbyes. And, it's a couple of things that didn't work out, unfortunately. But you had mentioned the lips on the Beast, so moving on to the special effects, which were incredibly heavy in this movie.
Yeah, his lips were a little funny. They were distracting.
You're talking about the Beast?
The Beast.
Yes.
I thought all the rest of him looked okay. He was still being pretty handsome for a Beast. More handsome than the Prince, so...
I agree the design was nice, and the wardrobe he had was well designed too. It looked cool. The animation for the Beast it did not look great. I'm sorry. He was incredibly stiff. The facial animations didn't look right. He kind of stuck out a little. He did the King Kong thing that you pointed out from the ride. He's like shifting expressions left and right in between lines, and the movement between him and Belle just doesn't look right. He sticks out, and I don't know. It just did not. They should have gone the route of prosthetics and mix in with CGI, and they unfortunately didn't do it. They just went for a full CG character, and in this case, I felt did not work.
I agree. One thing I was very impressed with is all the background and the architecture that they did have in there. I thought it was beautiful, and they tied in a lot of French architecture into that too.
Yeah.
Which, of course, you don't see in the other one. It's just, here it is. But they had all the different gargoyles, and just the castle looks like, and I was blown away by the old castle in the animated, but this one I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Because there was so much to look at all the time, except for the little chingaderas hanging from the ceiling, those little gold things in my face.
That turn into her dress later.
Yes, they're so
Stupid
weird.
Things.
I don't
Let's
like
focus
those.
on these because they're going to come into play later.
Yeah, I'm like, get those out of my face. Brushing them away.
fucking things. The objects I thought they looked great, like the way they talked and all that. As I mentioned before, there were some scenes in which they had to keep the camera static so that they can animate the fucking giant dresser drawer talking to him. I think Lumiere I wasn't happy with still. Just looked really... It was like just a little person with hand. Like I like that it looked like a regular handle holder.
Gling, 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 hopping.
Constantly hopping. That's what I wanted. I like the feather duster, oddly enough. Like even though it was just a bird with a feather thing.
I was glad they had more of her in this though, because in the original you just see, oh no, oh yes, oh no. Like that's all that you see of her. And now they actually make a story between her and Lumiere, which I thought was sweet.
And the story between the dresser and the piano, which now the piano was his own character. And that was a nice addition to it. He was animated great too. The fight between the humans and the objects, I thought was done pretty well too.
We didn't have the scissors.
Yeah, he pussied out the whole time.
Yeah, he did.
He did not
showed up later with his little thing.
So yeah, that's another. The worst thing about it was I think still the Beast, and it's unfortunate because it's one of your main things for the movie.
Before we get into our overall thoughts of the movie, though, there's something that's caused a lot of controversy with this movie. A whole lot of controversy. And I'm going to touch on it and just get your thoughts. They, not super openly, but have the first official gay Disney character in this movie.
Is it for sure? Like, is this the first official?
Official.
Okay, was it the one who got cross-dressed as one of the three Musketeers?
Okay, he was one. So there's two characters in there.
And the other one, I guess, was LeFou?
Yes.
Is it official, though? I mean, because he talks about how he tries dating women and they all think he's too clingy. And then he clearly has a hard-on for Gaston, but I bought that as he really likes Gaston and he wants to be Gaston. Yeah, he was a little feminine sometimes, but that doesn't necessarily make him gay. I didn't get that. Like, I understood
and then he danced with the guy at the end of it.
They sort of ended up together and they kind of looked at each other, but like, I got that more. Like, that was just like a joke, I think. I know the one guy was probably gay, the one that, got
he got
changed.
Cross-dressed and he was like,
Like, he was happy about it.
He was so fabulous.
Like, I'm like, oh, that's the gay character. But I think I read a thing on Twitter, or there was an interview with, I believe, the director or the writer who said, no, LeFou wasn't intended to be gay.
Okay. Well, then it's that guy.
But, I mean, there's still one, right? I mean, whatever. I mean, it didn't, I don't think it was distracting as in, like, well, they had to include one. It was just like, okay, gay character there.
The story, yeah.
It was put in there as a joke, so I can maybe see if someone is upset about it because it's like, okay, so the gay guy
theaters are boycotting this
and
movie. There are some theaters who will not play this movie.
I heard there was one.
Okay, there's a theater that will not play this movie.
They're losing money. I don't get, like, even if I disagreed, if I was a movie theater and they came out with I'm not going to get political. Something that I definitely disagree with, but it's going to make me a shit ton of money. I'm going to play that bitch in the theater. I'm going to make that fucking money.
For sure.
You work at any kind of retail place and you don't agree with a comic book that's coming out and it's selling out. I'm not going to be like, well, I'm not going to sell that shit anymore because I don't like it or I disagree with it. No, you're going to sell it, make your fucking money and move on. Keep your own shit outside of work. So yeah, no, I think that's silly. It's ridiculous. You're only going to see more of these characters. Are they going to boycott every single gay character in all of their movies? No, that's not going to happen. They just decided to pick on Beauty and the Beast for whatever fucking reason, to get on the headlines. But, I mean, I don't know if it's controversial. Maybe it's just a clickbait thing, but it didn't. I
think LeFou should be with that man. They were sweet together.
It doesn't matter to me. I didn't care either way. It was just, I don't think I even looked at you like, oh, look, there's a gay character. It was the story moved on. I didn't stop it. Like, I don't know.
I don't think it pulled away from the movie.
I don't know why it's controversial or whatever.
It is. Come on. It's the first one. Calm down. He was very happy to be in that dress.
That he was. Overall, I mean, let's wrap up the review. And I do want to mention that, as people know, I'm a fucking crier. And I cried harder during the live action Beauty and the Beast than I ever do. And I say ever do because I do it every time I watch it, the animated Beauty and the Beast. And here's the difference between these two endings is, that the objects are going to become objects at the end, and the Beast dies, and that's very sad, sure. But then you cut into like 2-3 minutes of the objects slowly becoming regular objects, and then the relationships of each of those characters that you grew attached to, that from the animated movie And that's where fucking Disney, I was like, you fucking cheaters. You fucking assholes.
You assholes.
You guys cared about the Feather Duster and Lumiere from the animated one, right? Watch them say goodbye to each other as the Feather Duster becomes nothing, just becomes a Feather Duster, and he's holding her, and he's saying goodbye to her. Remember that little story we came up with the dresser and the piano man? She's saying goodbye to her beloved. So for all you couples out there, here's this for you.
Oh, but then...
No, well, he says, no, don't leave me, and she's already an object, and he's just crying. But yeah, go ahead with the other one.
And then their dog comes out. The little footstool dog comes out after his mom and dad are already fucking objects. He's barking on him, crying,
whining.
Then he becomes an object.
Oh my God, I was fucking destroyed. I was obliterated. Like, they hit you from all directions.
Oh,
Couples.
It gets worse.
Okay, go touch the last one so we can...
There's two. There's two more.
Okay.
So then you have Mrs. Potts, and she's running around.
Yes.
And she's like, where's Chip?
No.
Somebody find Chip. Where is Chip? I can't find Chip. And then she turns into an object, having never seen her son again.
In the middle of her fucking desperation.
Never seen her son. Her son comes flying out of nowhere like, oh shit, Mom! Mom, trying to see his mom before she turns into an object, but she's already a fucking object. And then he barely gets saved from dying by the coat rack, sees his mom's an object, boom, he's an object too. And then there's the moment with Cogsworth and Lumiere. That one really got me, where they look at each other, and Cogsworth is just sitting there. He's like, I can't talk, I can't speak. And Lumiere's just accepting of it all, just seeing all his friends. Like, that's the end of him. It's just, look, I'm tearing up. I can't even talk about it. It's just him. And he's like, it's okay. I understand. And then Cogsworth is gone. And then Lumiere just does one final magnificent twirl, because that's who Lumiere is. And then they're done. Oh my God, Disney, what did you do to me?
Fucking cheaters, I'm telling you. I cried so fucking hard I just really did not, like, I expected to cry at the end of this from the Beast and Belle, like, but all my attention went to the objects. So that moment of them two dying, like, the Beast dies with his eyes open, which was different,
yeah,
right?
That was weird.
But that's how people die. Actually, it's not like in the movies, where they go to sleep. He just fucking stares off and he's dead, and she's talking about how he needs him, and it didn't work as well, because I think, as you mentioned, we don't really buy that she's in love with the Beast, but everything before that, I couldn't stop. Like, it was getting, my crying was getting into sobbing, and I don't sob at the movies. Like, I tear up and I'm just stone-faced, but tears and fucking, but I was like sobbing at this moment of all these, and this is where young couples, here's Lumiere and the Feather Duster. Older couples, here's the dresser and the piano. Do you have pets? Here's this dog. You're going to see this dog whine because the parents aren't alive anymore, and now you're going to see the pet turn into nothing, and then friendship with Cogsworth, and I just couldn't fucking take the parents. If you parents out there, the biggest fear is losing your child or not having them there, and she goes before he sees Chip. It was so fucking heavy. I couldn't bear it. I really couldn't. It got me.
But yeah, I mean, me too. You and I were both sitting there, and I'm sitting here with all my tissues.
My God, it just really fucking gets you. It gets you fucking hard. And yeah, so compliments to the fucking movie for making me cry more than the animated. Like, holy shit. I can't rewatch this. I mean, when I rewatch it on Blu-ray, I don't know if we're going to get it on Blu-ray, but when we do, it's going to be tough to go through that scene again, and every single time. It's going to be so incredibly difficult. So it moved me emotionally. Good job, movie, on doing that. Let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one big change in the difference too. So we go through that whole part, and then in the end, you actually see the sorceress, and you find out she's actually been living in the town.
Fucking asshole. She's an asshole.
She's been there for all of this, and watched everything come to fruition, and the petal actually fell. It was done. The Beast was dead. The objects were gone. I mean, just like in the original, and that's something that people complained about. The last petal fell. Like, you used to say it all the time. He's dead. Like, they're done. He shouldn't have come back to life. Because Belle says, I love you after the last petals fall.
Cut to black. Roll credits.
Right.
This shit's done.
So, yes, but she's there, and she hears Belle say, I love you, and she knows that the Beast loves her because of the sacrifice that he's watched watched him make for her, and then chooses, all right, I'll stop being an asshole, and then brings everybody back.
And the whole town remembers the castle, and
we see Mr. Potts. We finally get a Mr. Potts.
Mr. Potts and Mrs. Cogsworth.
Oh man, he did not like his wife.
Turn me back in 2 o'clock. Let's give our final thoughts on Beauty and the Beast.
I thought it was a great watch. It was a good, like we said, all throughout. They made some better choices this time around. There were some things that were lacking and didn't hold up to the first one. But as far as a live action remake for 2017, I thought they put in a solid effort. It's definitely something that I think warrants more than one watch, especially if you're a huge fan of the original, because the whole time I was just looking for similarities between the two. How similar is this musical number? How do I feel for this character like they made me feel for them in the original? Mm-hmm. And I feel like the second time I would be able to view it more as its own film and its own thing.
Much like Watchmen, the live action one, this is as close as you're going to get to pretty much an exact replica or remake of the animated. So anyone that wanted that out of the movie, you really don't have much to complain about unless you're starting to nitpick. Aside from that, as we mentioned, additions, some good, some bad, some cuts that could have been made. Poor acting on my end that I felt was from Belle and Maurice, and the CGI wasn't great on the Beast. The singing was nowhere near what it was in the animated. That definitely lacked.
The animated was all Broadway actors. That's what they did.
Still, I mean, you're remaking that. You got to get that. You got to match that level as well. And unfortunately, we didn't get that. But I mean, it moved me. I'm really happy, satisfied overall with it. And yes, the animated one will stand this time as the better of the two films, but this is by no means a bad movie. My rating out of 5 Enchanted Roses, 3.5 Enchanted Roses.
It's very good. I'm going to give it 4 Enchanted Roses because I felt it held very true to the spirit of the original with doing its own thing too.
So there you go, Brokettes, our full review for the Beauty and the Beast live action remake. Let us know what you thought of Beauty and the Beast on Twitter @ReasonsImBroke, Facebook.com/TheReasonsImBroke. And as always, for a link on everywhere you can find us, you can head on over to TheReasonsImBroke.com.
I do want to kind of step on my soapbox for a second, though. If you guys have seen this movie, please be very careful with what you're posting on social media. There are still a lot of people who want to see this movie and haven't. It was so difficult for me to avoid anything about it, for the 4 days, 5 days until we had the opportunity to go see it. And you don't want to ruin the experience for somebody because you're going, oh, and in the end, all this stuff happens and you're going to cry. So don't even say, if you're talking to somebody about it, don't even say it's amazing, you need to go see it, or it sucked comparatively. Just give it a little while longer before you really start saying things about the movie.
Or stay off social media. You can,
I couldn't do that. It's my Facebook. People I work with were going crazy too. Okay, everybody saw it on Thursday night. We waited till Tuesday. Come on.
So thank you all so much for tuning in for the podcast this week and for the review. We always appreciate all of the listens and all of you for telling other friends and getting more listeners on the show and future Brokettes for the Reasons I'm Broke podcast.
Thank you guys so much. I'm Kelli.
And I'm Daniel.
We'll see you on the next one.